Hello and welcome to episode number 40 of the WP Café show with me, Keith Devon.
And with me, Mark Wilkinson. We've made it to the big 4-0.
I know, over the hill.
Over the hill, yeah. Oh well, it can only get worse from here then.
Yeah. So it's good. Good 40 episodes. Decent little milestone, that, I think. So
yeah, it is good.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us, everyone, today. We've got a few people watching along live. I'm sure a few of you will catch this later or on a podcast or something like that. So because we're obviously on all the podcast kind of catchers. I think we're on all of them. And we're here live on YouTube, and you can catch us on YouTube afterwards as well. So thanks for joining us today. We've got a few things to chat about today. Mark, what's on the agenda?
So I asked earlier this week for questions. We always like taking questions from people, and I did get a question from I can't remember the person's name. Let me click on the link from Anthony Smith. So we've got a question to answer from Anthony. So thank you, Anthony, for your question. And we have got a topic about our full site editing, which we are continuing with. So we've got some things to chat through about that. If you have done any full site editing, you will probably know those things. And if you've done any, let us know how you get on as well. And then finally, a bit of a sort of conversation that we saw on Twitter about developers and things. So we can touch on that as well. Which
yeah.
So lots to discuss. So we get straight into that question.
Let's do it. Yeah. Do you want me to read it out and then you can do your best to answer it, or we can both try and answer it? But
yeah, we can definitely do that. Just before we do, hello to everyone who is currently saying hi in the chat. So thank you to Tony, Exlams, Paul, and is it Silly?
Silly. Yeah.
So hi, thanks for joining us, and let us know if you have any questions. Go for it. Let's see what Anthony had to say.
Okay. So he says, the navigation block remains largely crap/useless for anything other than the simplest of menus. I'd love to know what alternatives people use. Extending seems a non-starter at the moment. I've settled on Max Mega Menu via a short code which defeats the object of FSC editor. So that was his comment. Slightly edited, but from me. But,
okay, that's fine. Yeah, great question. And yes, the navigation block, if anyone has ever used it in full site editing, is crap. Let's be honest, it's not very good. I'm sure it's going to get some work at some point in the future, or I certainly hope that's going to be the case, because it is. I tried to use it on, I think it was on my personal site, actually. I was doing some work just trying to get I post a lot of code snippets on Twitter, and many people have suggested there should be a place where I can sort of collate all those. So I was adding that to my website and wanted to put a link in the menu, and it was horrific. Like actually adding a link was horrific. So yes, it is rubbish. So what are the alternatives that people use? So we are going to do it the old-fashioned way. So essentially, doing an old menu is the best way of doing it. Like the old menu interface in the back end, or even in the customizer, was pretty good. Like it did a really good job of creating a menu for me. And actually, what we found out is if you register an old style, I don't know, do we call them classic menus now? I don't know what we call them.
Yeah, let's coin the term.
If you register if you register a classic menu in the normal way, they just come back. That's all you need to do is just register a menu, or a menu area as they're called. And those menus will reappear in the back end. So what you then need is you'd need a block to actually add to the page to choose a classic menu. So there's a few ways you could do that. You could obviously build one natively if you've got the skills to do so. I'm actually going to have a stab at that. It's been on my list this week to do. I've never got around to it yet.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't think it'll be that hard, but they always are when I ever go at them. So I can imagine it being more time consuming than I actually think it's going to be. Yeah. Obviously, you could create one with something like advanced custom fields blocks. Getting a list of the registered menus and allowing the user to choose which menu to show in sort of a select input, something like that. That would be great. You could also build a shortcode that lets you sort of pass a menu name as a parameter and then use that in the full site editing system. That's another way of doing it. So there's quite a few options. But like, as I said, I think we're going to go for the building sort of a block, a native. Is native the right word? Block. to actually choose a menu and then register it in the old style way, which will give the user the old style appearance menus section to actually construct their menu and make the changes that they want.
I thought that was a pretty good menu system. I'm kind of surprised at how much of a step back the new navigation block was. I found it really terrible. There's a place, like there's a button within the interface, for example, I think it says something like manage menu, and you click it and it goes to some like old school WordPress admin area, and the only thing that you can do is change the name of it. Like you can't manage it at all, except give it a new name. It was totally bizarre. Like I found it felt like an afterthought. I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure there's technical difficulties and there's a plan, but yeah, really, really poor experience. I wonder, Mark, if it's worth just talking very briefly about how we did a mega menu for a client, because I thought that worked really well, and I don't know if that's something that you could do in full site editing somehow. I mean, you could, but what we ended up doing was registering our own post type. I think it was called menu item or something like that. And for each of the top level menu items in a menu, so the ones that you see in the horizontal bar, you'd have your own kind of like post stroke page edit screen, and it was block enabled. And what you could do is you could either like give that a link just in the sidebar, wasn't it? And if you gave it a link, that was a page. It didn't have a mega menu. If you didn't give it a link and you added content to the kind of block area, whenever you hovered over the item, it displayed that block area, and it actually worked really, really well. So we ended up doing like Gutenberg column blocks to create the mega menu columns, and then we just added lists of links. I thought it was a really, really tidy solution for mega menus. It's not something that we've kind of packaged up in any way and released, but it's something that people could give a go.
It had some challenges because we had to make it the selected item when you're actually on a page. So the user had to sort of choose which page it should be or which pages and post types it should be the selected item on. Because it was a mega menu, it contained like content across different post types and pages. So the client wanted to make it sure it was active when the user was on any of those pages. So they've got a little selection tool in the admin where they can choose all the types of content that it should be the active menu for, that sort of thing. And then, like he said, it just has a link where you can paste a URL in, essentially. And if that's present, that's all it does. It just makes the title of that particular menu item a link to that thing without being a mega menu. But I think we looked at those plugins, didn't we? Like I can't remember what they're called. I think Anthony mentioned one in his question, which was like Max Mega Menu. I can't remember that's the one we looked at, but there was a few mega menu plugins. And they were all just like super complicated and not really what we wanted. So it would be a bit of it would have to be a step of making it easier or simplifying it or stripping stuff out or adding stuff to it. So we just decided that this would be a decent idea to do. And I think it came off the back of one we did a couple of years ago, which was very similar, except we didn't have the block editor back then. Yeah. And actually the block editor made this nice and easy because you could lay out the mega menu with blocks and columns and things, which is great. And I don't think we did this, but you could quite easily give a template for what a mega menu should look like. So when they click on new menu item, you could already have it laid out in 3 columns with headings for each column. Want that third column, for example. Yeah. And lock that sort of down as well. So that'd be a really good idea. I don't think we did that. I might be wrong, but anyway.
If anyone wants to take a look at this solution, if you go to FrazerJones.com, so FRAZER Jones JONES.com, it's on that. So you can have a look and inspect the code and kind of see how that was put together. But yeah, that's how we did it. Worked really well. Yeah,
it is. It's good, but certainly menus and navigation is not great in the full site editor. So it needs to change. I'm sure. Well, everyone's basically saying the same thing. So I think it's obviously going to have some improvements, but these things take time. So we've just got to be a little bit patient and come up with solutions in the meantime. Which hopefully those suggestions have helped. So we'll see.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony, for the question. That was a good question. Hopefully that helped. I know it's not like we don't have a solution that's just like install this and all your problems will go away. But and if anyone's come across a plugin that really levels up the menu system in WordPress and full site editing in particular, we'd love to hear about it. Stick it in the comments or send us a tweet or something like that.
Yep. Cool.
Let's move
on.
A
couple of comments, which is good.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So Xlam says, yeah, how would the navigation block work for complex menus and mega menus? I guess the classic navigation that we just talked about doesn't really handle those. So you might have to use plugin like Anthony suggested or do something what we've done. Peter says, hi, just popped in for a look. Hi, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully you're finding something interesting in the show and you'll come back. And Tony said that I've had some nav pain this AM. I like the sound of adding a nav area to get around his problems to go back to the classic menu system. So I think that's the best solution that we've come up with in terms of fixing this in the short term at the very least. So certainly worth considering. Yeah. So that's the question. As we said always, if you do have questions for future episodes, let us know because it'd be really good to.
We've got another one right now from Silly. Apologies if we're pronouncing that wrong. I'm not sure how to pronounce that name, but do you already use FSE for your customers? We are in the middle of building our first FSE powered website, which brings us nicely into our next kind of topic.
It does.
So one of the challenges, this is just a kind of discussion point. We don't actually have an answer necessarily. But I was chatting to a client the other day. So we're building this full site editing theme, and I've been working locally, like just building the site.
When you say building the site, you mean in the site editor, in the WordPress admin?
Yes.
Using the block editor to build the
site editor
templates. Yeah.
That's right. So I've been doing all of that locally as much as I can, and then just adding the CSS I need that I can't achieve. So that was all going very well. And then we talked to the client, and she was saying, when can I get access to start adding content? And I was like, okay, yeah, well, I'll just kind of export and import what I've done locally onto the staging site. We should be good to go by the end of the day, kind of thing. And I think you were like, whoa, hang on. I don't think this is going to be quite so straightforward this time, because unlike when we're building kind of more traditional themes and I've committed all my kind of theme changes in CSS and I just like push it to develop or main, and then it automatically gets deployed, and then all those changes are there on the live or the staging site. This is a little bit different because a lot of my changes are actually database changes and not code changes. And we had a quick look, and you can export. Okay, Mark, you actually kind of had a quick go at this earlier. So what did you come up with as the way we're going to go about it?
So with a full site editing theme, you've got obviously templates in the theme, which are actually now HTML templates. They're not PHP, although you can have PHP templates in that override things, but we'll leave that for another time. So the HTML, and the reason why the HTML is because they're just block markup with block markup comments, essentially. And what we've done as part of our build is we have added additional templates. So one of the templates that we're building, it's a recruitment site. So we're building a job archive, which is the job listings page. So that's a new template. So using the site editor, you go in and you say, I want to create a new template. It gives you a list of options that you can add that aren't in the theme currently. And as it's detected that there's a jobs post type and it knows that the theme doesn't have a job archive template, it gives you that option to choose that one. You can also create custom ones that you can assign to pages, for example, and posts. So we've added the jobs template, and then Keith's basically used the block editor to build that out in terms of like doing a query loop and outputting all the content, etc., etc. Now, what happens when you save that is that gets saved in the database. So it doesn't actually get saved as a file in your theme. So it's sat in the database of that particular site. And as Keith's working locally, it's just sat in his local site. So I think what you were thinking originally, Keith, is that you would go into the live site or staging domain, whatever we're using, and actually do exactly the same as you did in the site editor in the live site. But I remember seeing that there was an export feature. So once you had built your site in the site editor, so you'd then have a mixture of database templates and that have been customized or added, and ones in your theme, you could then export that into one theme package so that everything was actually a physical file template, HTML template in your theme, which you could then push to the server, and that would have all the templates in. So I think that's the process that we need to get used to working with. Whereas previously, we'd just be writing PHP templates, committing the code, pushing it, and then, hey, presto, it's on the server. So we don't really have a workflow for that yet in terms of how that actually works. But that's something that we need to work out. And that's what kind of caught us out a bit in terms of we thought this would be really quick, but actually it's just different than what we're used to doing. So it's going to take some time to get used to how to do that. So I think we were chatting this morning, but I think the solution might be that what you do now is you get your local site ready. So you've made the changes to the templates that you want. Any customizations to templates are also being done. And then you basically say, right, I'm ready for export. You export that. WordPress gives you this theme with all those templates in, with all those template parts in. Then what you can do is we can commit that to our repository and push that to the server. So that's now a theme which has got all those templates available. And then in your local site, you can then go ahead and remove the customizations you've made locally from the database because you've now got them in your theme. So they'll automatically be there as well. I think that's the best way to do it, but I'm probably wrong. So if anyone knows better, then let us know.
I've just made a note to follow up with this next week on the next week's show. We can say how that went. A couple of comments on this particular topic. So Dean asked, do you use any type of database sync between local and staging, even before full site editing, adding media, pages, etc., within local development? No, I wouldn't say a database sync.
No, so usually I've not found we need that, to be honest. So, for example, if we're building out some features on a single post template, so it's changing, you don't need all of the latest posts from the live site to actually do that work. You can do it without having the latest content, if that makes sense. There are times when you probably may want to sync things, and if so,
like settings, like plugin settings and things like that would be useful.
Yeah, we haven't really synced them for that. We've just generally set it up. It depends. Sometimes we've done like a pull of the live site back to local or to staging because we need like a copy. And to do that, we usually use WP Migrate from Delicious Brains, who it may or may not be WP Engine anymore. Can't remember. There's that many different acquisitions going on. That's really good for doing that. You can pull that content in and do it that way. But other than that, no, there's never been a direct sync between databases for local, staging, live, etc. I just haven't really found that we need it.
I think there's probably certain types of website where that's super useful, but we've built fairly big websites and never really felt the need. I think we used to do more of that than we do today, and actually sometimes it just ends up complicating things. So we like to avoid complicated things as much as possible. Some good questions here from Peter. Thanks, Peter. These for future episodes. How to improve the speed of my site. Yeah, we could talk about that every week, couldn't we? Completed WebP images, etc., but now trying to remove redundant CSS and redundant fonts. Elementor Pro and Astra theme. I think the answer is in the question. Elementor and Astra. It's just they're kind of those are everything to everybody solutions, and therefore they are going to be bloated. I don't know if there's a really clever way to remove the CSS you don't need, but you can imagine, the people behind Elementor and Astra are trying to build a system that can do anything. So you're going to need a lot of code. If you need something more streamlined, you either choose something a lot more lightweight or go down a custom route. But very interesting question. Like, is there a way to take something that is bloated like that? Are there any plugins out there that can kind of strip out what isn't used? Like I know in the Chrome, like the inspector, there's a coverage tab. which is really, really interesting. So you can see what percentage of your JavaScript and CSS files are actually being used on that page. But I don't know if there's any clever solutions out there that can turn that information into a new CSS file. That's what you want, like something that can work kind of almost on the fly. And say, this page needs this CSS, so I'm just going to include that CSS.
What would be good? They may well do this. I don't know. It'd be good that you can turn things on and off, and that turns off the CSS as well as sort of the admin panels. I don't know whether this is the case, but like if Astra theme comes with like its own testimonials post type to do testimonials, like turning that off in the admin would be a great option. And then it also actually doesn't enqueue all the CSS for that as well. I don't know whether that's an option or not. I was looking at sliders earlier this week. We were looking for a slider that wasn't jQuery. We've got lots of suggestions on Twitter, actually, which was good. And a lot of those now with that sort of thing. So they're very modular in the way in which you sort of like request them. So you're no longer just pulling in the slider JS and the slider CSS. You just get everything. And then if you're not even using pagination or you're not using dots, you get them anywhere. They're very much like, pick and choose. And then you just get you just load in what you need, which is good. So it's cool. Loads of questions today. I love this. It's good.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you very much. Where are we going to next?
Tony, I think. Oh, no, Lucas says, thanks for doing the content. You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Lucas. So, Tony, I haven't read this yet, so I don't know what this is going to say. My workflow with HTML templates is to switch to code view when I'm done and save that to the correctly named file in the templates folder, then delete, reset the mods in FSE.
Yeah, I think that's a similar thing, except I was just talking about exporting it. And there is an export function. I think that's your next question. Is that part of native WP? Yeah, if in the site editor, if you click on the very top right-hand side, there's like 3 dots. It's where you can choose full screen mode or switch between visual and code. There's an export button in there, and it'll just literally download a zip file of your theme with all HTML files in.
Yeah. Sander, in the top right of full site editing, you have the meatball menu and toggle between visual and code. That's exactly what Mark just said. I think I copied. No, it's not. So Sander says, in the top right of the full site editing, you have the meatball menu and toggle between visual or code editor. I copy the code to an HTML file and commit that after I build a page template. Yeah, perfect. So that's what Tony was saying kind of the first time around. And then Dean saying to Tony, create block theme, the end of all WP themes. Interesting. Really, yeah. Okay, we need to have a look at that then.
Yep.
I haven't used or really know much about create block themes, so I'm really interested as a kind of theme developer who's rapidly losing his job.
I love it. Our comment system here that come up, it doesn't like shows emojis, but it like writes them out. So we've got like face purple crying, text green, game over.
Yeah, it's great. The emojis would be better, to be fair, but that is quite funny. Sander suggests Flickety slider, which I think I've used before, actually. I've certainly come across it. This is good from Alan. Thank you, Alan. Toolkit for Elementor is what you're asking for. I've bought and installed it, but not started using it quite yet, so I can't say more. Great. Let's I presume that's definitely
the modular thing that we were mentioning. Yep, cool.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Lots of thanks. Swiper, what's that? Is that
that's a slider? I looked at that as well. Yeah, there was glide, swiper. I can't remember. There's about 3 or 4 I got mentioned, which was certainly worth looking at.
Yeah, cool. What's Mark saying? There's a plugin for that. Just trying to find it. That's a plugin which
right back to theme folder. Yeah, clear database. What I was saying, so you make your changes and then you say, put these in my theme and clear them from the database. That would be really good.
Yeah. Okay. So what? There is a plugin that does this, or that's a suggestion for a plugin? I don't know.
I think he's suggesting there is one.
Okay.
Just trying to find what it is. If you find it, let us know. It'd be good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
And then Tony says, I'm just loving all the interaction today. Tony, before your next subject, is anybody going to the London WordPress meetup next week? I hope to be there. I wish. Can't make it. Yeah.
It's a bit far for me.
Yeah, it's a bit far for you, but I saw that hit my inbox and I was like, yes. And then, no, unfortunately not, Tony. But hopefully there will be some others. Looks like X Salams is going. That's super cool.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Hopefully
I
get
would
to one of
check it out if you're in the area for sure. It'd be nice to get back to some in-person meetups. We're going on a bit today. This is stretching our time scales, but we had one more little kind of topic, and it's kind of, well, potentially controversial topic. It was certainly controversial on Twitter when we saw it. We became aware. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to. That's not what this is about. But we saw a conversation where it was suggested that you couldn't or shouldn't maybe call yourself a professional WordPress developer if you didn't know how to build native blocks. And the two of us strongly disagree with that sentiment. Any thoughts on that, Mark?
Well, just because you don't know how to do one aspect of something doesn't mean to say that for me, doesn't mean to say you're not a professional at that thing. What does professional mean? For me, it means you earn a living from it. And we do. So, everyone's different. Everyone does things different. And that's fine. I think that's good.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean to say you're not professional and you're not, worthy of that title or whatever. I don't think that's fair.
There's an argument to at least be made that as a professional WordPress developer, maybe you should be able to do it at some level. Should is a strong word though, but it is how WordPress is built these days. So if you're going to build and develop on WordPress, should you be able to do it? I don't know. What do you think?
I think it'll help you if you can.
Yeah,
for sure. Why? Of course it will. But I think that's up to your clients to say whether you should or not, really. And then if you can't, then they'll go somewhere else, won't they? And then you'll think. Yeah. I don't think we should be saying people should be able to do something. It would be advantageous for you if you learnt it and could do it, for sure.
But would it necessarily even be that? I'm sure
it's not going to make you worse, though, is it?
It's not going to make you worse. No, it's another string to your bow, another arrow to your quiver. But yeah, I agree with that. But I mean, there must be so many ways that people build WordPress sites these days, and they're all just because the block editor came along and did its thing doesn't mean that what came before it was a terrible solution for everybody. People were very creative with how they started to use ACF and not just ACF, other kind of pods and things. I think was one of the other ones, other kind of meta style frameworks. But yeah, I just feel, and who agreed? Yeah, XSlam's agreed with me here. It's kind of feels like a kind of gatekeeper type comment, you're not good enough to kind of join our development club. And I just feel like there is in all of life, there's spectrums, aren't there? There's people at one end of something and there's people at the other end of something. And usually it's a bell curve. And I feel like the people that are saying that kind of thing are right at the end. They're at one end of the spectrum and they're not necessarily in touch with that vast majority that sits in the middle that are doing things the way they were doing things and getting by and actually delivering good results.
There's loads of people doing great results using pods and ACF and all sorts of other solutions, Elementor Pro and whatever. And the stuff they build for their clients, the clients like it. So where's the problem? If the client knows what they're getting and so forth, I don't see there's any problem with that. I think I threw this analogy at you before, and it was you have professional footballers at loads of different scales and ranges. You have League Two professional footballers, and then you have Premier League professional footballers. And it's a bit like the Premier League footballers saying, well, those League Two professionals, they're not training like us. They're not using all the systems that we use. So how can they call themselves professional?
Yeah.
But they're still professional footballers. They're still earning a living from playing football and doing the best they can.
Yeah.
And is that wrong? Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I pushed back and I said, I'm a professional developer and I can't build native blocks. And the person in question said, well, You can build native blocks because I've seen you build one. And that, okay, fair point. But does that mean that I only became a professional developer at the moment I learned how to do that? And what was I before that moment? Just a charlatan of some kind? I don't know. It just feels. Yes, exactly. It didn't feel quite right. But I think we should just. There are better ways to do things, without a doubt. Not everybody's there yet, and maybe they never will be, and that's also okay. As long as people aren't being dishonest about their skills and the product that they're delivering, it's okay to have this range of skills and abilities and price points, might I point out, because some people are working with very, very different budgets than others. So basically, the message I want to get across is don't feel shamed by not being able to do X or Y or Z, because there will always be someone that says you should be better at this, you should be better at that, because that's their thing and they're good at it and they think everyone should be good at it, but don't listen.
And that you're doing this wrong and you're doing that wrong. Well, you're not necessarily. I think Sander has a good point there. So it says transition takes time. Everyone's got to move to something else if they're using something. And why change your winning formula? Yeah. If you're using ACF blocks and it's working for you, your clients are enjoying the sites you build, you're making money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's always try and look at new stuff and better stuff. But if it's working, then great, it's working.
Yeah, absolutely. So crack on. I think just don't feel any shame. Be curious about what's there. Find out about stuff if you want to, but keep doing the thing you're doing if it's working for you. Just don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Yeah. Just before we finish, by the way, it has worked actually, Keith. The Twitter, we've actually put this live on Twitter today for the first time as well, and we didn't actually know where it would be, but it is actually on Twitter. I can see it on a page on the WP Café show handle.
Nice.
So and there is 0 viewers watching it, but never mind. It might appear in someone's feed at some point in the future, but we'll keep putting it on there because I think it's good to get it out to different platforms and different places. It doesn't do us any more work to sort of push it to these different places.
Exactly. Before you go today, people that are watching along live, please do give us a little thumbs up or like or whatever on YouTube. That would be much appreciated. It helps the algorithm, helps spread the word to other people who might be interested in this kind of thing. So please do subscribe if you feel inclined to receive more content like this. It comes into your inbox, so when we go live, you won't miss a show. Or pick us up on your podcast players, subscribe to the shows there. But great to have so many people along today. Really appreciate it. Appreciate the questions and the feedback.
Yep.
And we'll see you next week.
See you then. Bye-bye.